The atmosphere with color and lighting. Have you noticed that we humans associate different colors to different things? It varies depending on our individual experiences and the cultural influences we have had throughout our life. But there are certain trends that have been identified through research. Through mastering our control of color, we are able to manipulate the atmosphere of our illustration, and to a certain degree, the way that people feel when viewing our art. At a basic level, there's the understanding that we associate certain colors with existing feelings. For example, amongst other things, red is associated with danger, green is associated with nature, and blue, tranquility, due to the psychological response that are evoked in us when we see these colors. However, how do we apply color psychology to our illustration? We start by identifying what colors are associated with the types of scenes we want to depict. You can do this by looking at references and breaking down the color palettes. What sort of color palettes encapsulate each season? Or feelings like happiness and sadness. Once again, you want to balance these intentions with aesthetic appeal, which is really just about figuring out how to use colors that work well together. To do that, you can either study color theory, or if you're like me and prefer to just get hands-on experience, then you can learn from a mix of photos, other artists, reality, photo or reality, same thing, and experimentation. I'll provide some examples as well, but in my opinion, the more important thing is to learn how to learn rather than me just give you a set of steps to follow. I think that being adaptable and open to learning new things are essential to being an artist. Here's a quick demonstration of how you can incorporate the atmosphere from an illustration that you enjoy. Let's say that you like the atmosphere of this artwork, and you want to be able to recreate that in your own. There's two things to note. You want to decipher the lighting situation. So what kind of lighting is happening? You can see that there's a little bit of kind of rim lighting on the character. It's not very strong, but it is there. And you can tell that there is some lighting coming down from the sky, but again, there's not as much focus on the lighting compared to just the colors that have been used in this piece. I would say that the colors are more responsible for the overall atmosphere than the lighting. Lighting. Not strong. Rim lighting on character. As for the colors, we're going to decipher what makes them work. For I'm going to separate them into each kind of material, let's say. So for the water, here are colors that are being used in the water. And when you got them down, you kind of want to put them roughly next to each color that it touches. So I wouldn't put this here. I would put it here because this is touching this color. The dark looking pillars, the rock, flowers on the tree branch, along with the branch itself. And let's get some of these rocks in front as well. Now that you've got the color palettes down, you can have an easier time color picking over them and just having a look at where these colors are coming from. You can see that none of them are very saturated, except for this black. This almost black is quite saturated, but as for most of the other colors, they are all on the left side of this cube. No matter where you go. And this is creating some sort of color harmony in this artwork. So then when you are creating your own artwork, you will know to use colors. You can try to use colors from just this left side of this color cube. Going to add some more of the colors from back here, just to make sure that they really are as I have talked about. And it seems like, yes, they are all still just on that left side. Let me check the clothing. Okay, so the red, that is where the exception comes in. The only saturation in this piece are these few select warmer colors. And they are on the character and the wind chimes. So I've used this red, the saturation in the red, to make it stand out amongst the desaturated background. So I've used this saturation very sparingly. And so you get this kind of ratio. How much desaturation is in this artwork? You can have a look. Most of it is desaturated, apart from these tiny bits of detail. Let's say maybe saturation 5 to 10%. Mostly left side of cube. And in particular for this piece, it is cool toned. Cool toned, maybe also 90%. Actually, no. We have a lot of pink. We have a lot of pink, but it's not strong. It's gray pink, which makes it appear a lot cooler. So yeah, I would still say 90%, 85% cool tone. Furthermore, the blacks, black colors, saturated, black and warm accents. You don't have to write this down. I'm just keeping it here so you can see what I am taking in from this artwork. And finally, I think I am going to observe that there are a lot of gradients. Gradients. So if you scan something that's meant to be one color and you see, so these rocks, they would technically be the same color in reality, right? But there's actually a bit of a gradient as we go through them. So you can kind of tell that I have airbrushed. I've airbrushed the background a lot due to these gradients. Along with the water, you can definitely tell in the water there's a lot of airbrushing. And in these rocks. So if you look at the shadow of these rocks, you can see that the shadows themselves also have a gradient. Just a lot of gradients everywhere. Now, if you want to create your own artwork, you have the puzzle pieces ready over here. Let's try and draw something. This is not going to look very good because I'm just going to draw something random from my memory. But let's say you have some, let me just make this darker. So you want to depict some water. And learning from what we have up here, we can create the water using the left side of the cube, desaturated colors. And let's have a look again. So for this gradient, it moves downward in a little curve, like a little C curve. And now whether you exactly want this blue color or not, you can switch it up. Change it to this color, change it to that color. But we are going to follow the curve. So it moves from this side of the color wheel to over here. And at the same time, it moves upwards in a little C shape. So I'm going to start here, for example, and start moving upward. Let's say I want to, what should I draw? Perhaps a bridge. We're going to draw a a light colored bridge. And let's have a look at these rocks. All the colors are very close to this top left corner. And they don't, oh, they change hue a little bit, just from dark blue to light blue. So I'm going to try and stay around this area. This has made me realize I have no clue what a bridge would look like from memory, but I imagine something like this. We can keep it basic. Let's just make it, should I make it a full? Yeah, okay, a full kind of concrete looking thing. The shadows of the rock are more in this middle section. So I'm gonna grab something from here as well to draw in this back part. And we know that these rocks, they actually have a lot going on, just even within the same area. This is a light part of the rock, but it actually changes hue quite a bit. So I'm going to change the hue as well, just to add a little bit of more texture and information. I'm going to fill in the background a little bit with some sort of trees and whatnot. Let's see what I used back here. Yeah, mostly colors just in this middle section. So for the bottom of this kind of rocks or trees or whatever, I'm going to use these sort of darker colors from this bottom corner of the cube. I'm gonna fill it in. And some trees up here. We can see that things being in the distance, in this case, in this scenario, the value does not entirely get lighter, as they often do. But in some circumstances, you can see it has been lightened with a gradient so that this branch can be seen as separated from the top of the ceiling. But for these rocks back here, they are still very dark. So we can keep it mostly on the dark side. On the dark side, in the warmth. And I'm going to just add some trees, some detail. I'm gonna reuse this. Gina, remember what we said about the pink, white colors? I'm gonna use some pinky colors for these trees and help them stand out. And we know there's a little bit of lighting. I want it to cast, I think maybe this way. So I'm actually going to darken this front part. We originally had a gradient for the water, but it's kind of gone now. So I'm going to put it back in since the amount of water that I was expecting to have has decreased a lot. So again, with the whole gradient thing, I'm going to think about where do I want the dark part? Where do I want the light part of the water? I think I prefer the light on the inside of the image. I think it attracts more attention than the darker part. And I want people to look more in the center. Let me add in a character as well. So for the skin tone, it is a desaturated warm color if it's in the shadow. And since I want the character to be looking towards us, I'm going to keep it as the shadow color. Eventually, as you get used to color picking from reference, you'll get to know whereabouts on the color cube to pick colors that look nice together. Just the more and more that you do of this, the more and more you train yourself, you train your intuition to be able to pick colors that look nice together. Otherwise, there's always the option of using existing color palettes. And since the character is blending in a little with the background, we can add that bit of rim lighting. So for the dark of the hair, it doesn't actually go much lighter. It's very gray, warm in the middle. So we can pick somewhere from warm colors in the middle. I want you to learn to use this to get used to color picking, and also I highly recommend to experiment a little. Don't get caught up in trying to completely replicate another artist or painting's colors exactly. It's better to have some colors that look nice together and then just think, oh, what if I add this color into the mix? Does it look nice? Do I like it? Do I not like it? It's important to be willing to try those things. Now also we want to put in more of those gradients that I talked about. You can do that with layer modes and airbrush. An easy one is soft light. Set your layer mode to soft light and then start putting some colors on. Now you get that subtle gradient effect that is so prevalent in the piece up here. Takes a bit of experimenting to get exactly the effect you want. You can also use hard light. So for the hard light, I'm going to make it mostly affect just the background. I do this very roughly, applying a layer mask to the hard light layer and applying some gradients to the background. Right now I'm just using some random blues and pinks. Adding some lighter blue behind the bridge to make it have a glowy effect. Adding in some grays as well because I don't want the effect to be too strong. And you can also turn down the opacity if you think it's looking too intense. But yeah, just a quick demonstration on how you can learn from your references, but apply it to a whole new scene and yet depict the same atmosphere. When it comes to references, it's best to pick references of the subject matter that you're intending to draw already. So you should have, so for this artwork, I would do a much better job if I actually had a reference of a real bridge, because as you can see, when I was trying to draw the bridge, I had no idea really what a bridge looks like from my vague memories. It's best to have a real reference of your subject matter. So a real reference of these kind of trees, the mountain gorge, the bridge, the girl, and have stylized references of them as well. Because through the stylized references, you will be able to tell how other people have interpreted reality already to some degree of success, especially if there's a reason that you decided to pick them as your reference. Likely you appreciated their illustration and stylization in some way. Let's try and also add some of that very saturated color into the scene. So I've picked a very saturated kind of pink. I don't know what I really want to draw. Maybe some butterflies. I think value-wise, it's a little bit too strong. So making them a little lighter and putting in a bunch of them. Going to make the bridge have a gradient as well. So here the rocks fade from this light purple color to like a duller green, blue. So moves around the hue this way to the right and comes down a little bit. Oh, I put on the wrong layer. Adding this in to soften it as it disappears into the background. Looking better. Few ways that you can experiment are with adjustment layers. This is the tone curve. I'm going to clip it so that it just affects this artwork. And moving these around, you can get some really interesting effects on the colors. Don't really have a pre-planned idea on what I'm doing right now. I'm kind of just moving things around, seeing what they look like, and if I like it, then I'll keep it. Another option is color balance. You notice your colors are particularly yellow, blue, green. You can balance it out, basically. I want it to be a little greener, a little bluer. I'd say these two are the main ones that I use to adjust colors. And I like to use level correction for changing up the contrast. So the middle one makes the... Actually, I have no idea really how to explain what levels are because I don't know. I just know when you move these, things change. This side gets lighter, this side it gets darker, and this bottom one controls how dark the darks are, and this top one controls how light the light colors are, essentially. Which is why I just recommend experiment, get to know the tools, and you'll end up maybe being a little lucky and finding something that looks unique and interesting. Here's the before and after. To round off everything, I just want to emphasize a few points. It is really important that when you're doing this, when you're analyzing from your reference and applying it to your own work, I want you to really think about learning. So I want you to really retain in your head and which ones go well together. And then this will end up being one ingredient that you can recall and use again in the future. If all of these are just the ingredients, the recipe for this artwork, then there's so many recipes out there for you to try. And the way that you can come up with your own recipe is through experimentation, which is why I recommend it so much. Don't stick to just what everyone else does. If you want to create something new, and unique, then you need to try new things. And finally, use lots of references. This is kind of self-explanatory. If you only use one reference and your visual library is just not built up well enough to support it. I mean, even mine isn't. I don't even know what a bridge looks like. You want to use lots and lots of references to help you out. So for this artwork, as I said, I could definitely use a bridge reference, trees, the girl, and I could use more stylization references. But for the sake of this demonstration, I just used one so that you can see how I break down the color and lighting aspects and how I can translate that to a new piece of artwork. Alright, I hope that this lesson was helpful. Next up is the exercise. The exercise for color and lighting is quite straightforward. Recreate several different atmospheres by using various color and lighting scenarios. I have provided a few examples here. So in the top right, this is what I would say is most alike to the character's inherent colors. Just in the most normal lighting situation you can imagine, these are the colors displayed. With a bit of my own style and preferences influencing the outcome. And down here, these are some different color palettes applied to this artwork. The next one, I decided to try a different lighting. So I've moved the lighting. Originally, the lighting is somewhere up here, shining down from the top right of the character downwards to the top left. Meanwhile, over here, the lighting is more somewhere down here, shining upwards, creating a rim light effect. You can tell that the atmosphere is very different between the two. This is more like outdoorsy, strong lighting, summery, and the energetic lighting, whereas this one is moody, like a candlelit dinner kind of. Maybe not candlelight. Candlelight is too soft. This is a brighter lighting, but you know, it's the same feeling. Little more romantic. You can feel free to do the same lighting as me. I'm going to give you the PSD this time, and you can look through the layers that I have set up. For each one, I've done a bunch of things to them. Feel free to go through and have a look. There was no method to it really. I kind of just kept putting on layers and seeing what looked nice. I wanted to explore some different concepts. So here it is warm lighting, pink lighting with a cool blue shadow. Over here is a cool lighting with a warm shadow. And over here is a bit more neutral. Okay, I will leave it at that. I hope that the exercise will be fun, and I will see you guys in the next lesson.